Thank you, Prathamesh. Now I request Dr. Satish Kashik sir to take over the charge.
Yes, sir.
Sir, you can present now.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Wait 1 minute, sir. I will stop my present.
Yes.
Okay. Now you can present, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. Hello, Dr. Satish.
Hello. Just a
Mm.
minute.
How are you, sir? Mm.
Yes, I'm fine, sir.
Welcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, yes. How are things?
Fine, sir.
I look
So,
forward to your presentation.
respected Professor Dr. M.L. Vaikar. Dr. M.L. Vaikar is my guide, a friend, Dr. Aditya Nilawar, and all those who are attending this particular session. Good afternoon, all of you. So, I'm happy to see that many faculty, research scholars from Maharashtra as well as other states have joined. So, good afternoon, Abhijit Keskar sir, Aditya Nilawar, Akram Pathan, Anil Deshpande, Arun Dhawale, Ashutosh Chaturvedi. Dhawale sir is my friend, my classmate, batchmate.
Good
Uh,
afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Then Yugashri Bhure, Chandrakant Jeurkar, Dattatreya Rajbade, Dheeraj Naksin, Dinesh Kumar, Nadim Qureshi, Shrikant, Dr. Shrikantji, Mr. Dudhale, then the Ghongde, Jyoti Bhong, Ajay Khandare, thereafter Khushal Kanade, Lakshman Bhuiwar, Mayuri Madam, Dr. Vaikar, Mr. Y. Rajesh, Nitin Survase, Nitin Sonavane, Pallavi Madam, Prathamesh Sir, Pushpa R.P. Narvade, Rohan Sawant, S. Vivek, Sachin Khandekar, Sandeep Korke, Saurabh Rock, Sharayu Belsares, Nehal Deshmukh, and Upadhyay Balaji. So, good afternoon, all of you. So happy to see all of you. Firstly, I thank my guide, my professor, my mentor, Dr. M.L. Vaikar, for inviting me for this particular AICT FDP. I had a similar session in 2019 also. And now we will discuss the forecasting part in hydrology. It is quite interesting. It is somewhat interdisciplinary. So now I will share my entire screen and I will come to my PPT. Aditya sir,
Yes, sir.
you will be with me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So can you see my
Yes,
presentation?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So the title of today's lecture is Hydrological Modeling and Predictions. And in this, I'll be discussing two predictions which are very near to us.
Kashif, sir,
One is prediction of, huh,
will you please come closer to your mic, I mean, so that all are able
Mike.
to. Because it is being recorded, so better we have clear voice. If you come up close to the mic of your system, then all of us will be able to listen clearly. Just check, otherwise proceed.
Sir, please unmute yourself.
Okay.
Huh. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
You are audible, sir.
Okay, okay. Voice is clear?
Voice is clear, sir.
Okay, sir. Aditya sir, whether the first slide is visible?
Visible, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, I will be discussing hydrological modeling and predictions. Two aspects I will discuss. First is Indian summer monsoon rainfall, And second is the basin scale stream flow forecasting by using hydrometeorological and hydroclimatological inputs. Now, the outline of presentation. Firstly, I will give you a brief idea about the large-scale atmospheric circulation patterns, that is El Nino Southern Oscillation, as well as Equatorial Indian Ocean Oscillation. Thereafter, I will discuss the work which we had done for all India summer monsoon rainfall prediction based on ENSO and Equino. Thereafter, I will discuss the basin scale monthly stream flow forecasting using the information of large scale atmospheric circulation patterns for river Narmada and Mahanadi. And thereafter, I will discuss the basin scale weekly stream flow forecasting by hydroclimatological approach, again by using the El Nino Southern Oscillation and Equatorial Indian Oscillation indices. And if time permits, we'll also go for the prediction by using the local climate inputs in form of outgoing long wave radiations, total precipitable water, temperature anomaly, and pressure anomaly. Now, the objective of this particular study, which I'm presenting for forecasting, is to assess the association of large-scale climate circulations with Indian summer monsoon rainfall. Thereafter, to investigate the association of these large-scale climate circulations with the rainfall as well as stream flow, and thereafter to arrive at the best input to variable combinations for predictions. Now, before going to the meteorology and other things, I will discuss those interesting concepts based on which we go for predictions. Now, this particular slide shows us the annual mean global sea surface temperatures. So this particular map gives us the idea about the variation of annual mean global sea surface temperatures. We observe that along the equator, obviously higher temperatures are there, and as we go away from the equator, the temperatures go on reducing. But still, depending upon the geography, we find that there is a variation. Now, the difference in temperatures over the globe is the driving force behind the global wind pattern. So this particular figure shows us the global wind patterns. So these are the southeasterly trade, these are the northeasterly trade winds, these are the westerlies, and these are the westerlies, and so on. We have studied this particular part in the geography. Now, the meteorological seasons of India. Remember, meteorology of each and every country is different. So for India, we have winter in January, February, pre-monsoon season in March to May, southwest monsoon season in June to September, and post-monsoon season in October to December. Now, the southwest monsoon, the annual oscillation in the apparent position of the sun between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn causes the annual oscillation in the position of thermal equator, that is the region of maximum heating on the Earth's surface. And this is associated with oscillation of temperature, pressure, wind, cloudiness, rains. And this is the cause of monsoon. Now we know that monsoon is a tropical phenomenon. And India comes under, a major part of India rather, comes under a tropical zone. And the weather pattern involves wind blowing from southwest direction, which is called as southwest monsoon, from the Indian Ocean into Indian landmass during the months of June through September. These are generally rain-bearing winds, and they bring a rainfall to India. When these winds approach India, they have two branches. One is the Arabian Sea branch, and another is the Bay of Bengal branch. Now, after September, in the month of October, we find that the winds reverse the direction and start blowing from northeasterly region. And then from northeast direction, when they blow, then they bring a rainfall to Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu. It means the southeastern part of India. The system is not exactly same as the June to September, but the system is exactly opposite of that. So this monsoon is called as northeast monsoon. However, this rain is responsible for rice bowls of South India. The mechanism completes the annual monsoon cycle of the Indian subcontinent. Now see, this is the India monsoon onset map. So this is the Bay of Bengal branch and this is the Arabian Sea branch, and we find that how monsoon proceeds over India. It reaches up to here, and thereafter we will find in month of October again it returns. Now let us come to the forecasting part. Now there are certain terminologies. So whenever we want to have a forecast, say few hours ahead, but less than 24 hours, it is called as nowcasting. Thereafter, the next short range weather forecasting, it is say up to a lead time of say 72 hours. That is called as short range weather forecasting. Thereafter, there is medium range weather forecast, which is about say 4 to 10 days ahead, or up to say 7 days ahead in tropics. And then the long range forecast is defined as a forecast from 30 days up to say one season's description of average weather parameters. So my work deals with the long range forecast. It does not deal with the short, medium range or short range forecast, but mainly long range forecast. The seasonal forecast comes under the long range forecast. Now, before going to the discussion of the Indian summer monsoon rainfall, let us briefly understand how it is important. We find that the Indian summer monsoon rainfall, now why it is called as Indian summer monsoon rainfall? Because the monsoon is a season, it is seasonal rainfall, and major part of the season or rainfall is in summer. So on Indian continent, it is called as Indian summer monsoon rainfall. Now, which is also called as ISMR. So ISMR has profound impacts on agricultural based Indian economy. Hence, prediction of Indian summer monsoon rainfall is of a vital importance for Indian economy. It has been remained a great challenge for hydrometeorologists due to the inherent complexities in the climatic systems. Now, always we should remember that the atmosphere is continuous, it is big, it is all around the earth. It does not know the boundaries of continent, it does not know the boundaries of various countries, and so, and it has its own effect. And the atmosphere is big, the physics of the atmosphere is quite complex. At the same time, as the extent of the systems is very large, that's why the systems are very difficult to model, and that's why we take the help of the artificial intelligence for modeling these types of systems. So before going to these predictions, let us understand the concept of hydroclimatic teleconnection. It means teleconnection means what? A simultaneous variation. This is very important to understand. The simultaneous variation in weather and climate over widely separated regions. Simultaneous variation in weather and climate over widely separated regions on the surface of Earth is referred to as a teleconnection. Now, it means, what does it mean? So whatever happens on Pacific Ocean, say in month of say March, April, May, has association with the rainfall over Indian subcontinent. Whatever happens, it means the sea surface temperature variations, wind patterns, and so on. So they have a connection with Indian summer monsoon rainfall. So scientists started their studies to identify these hydroclimatic teleconnections. Now, what are the hydroclimatic teleconnections prominently observed over the world? One is El Nino Southern Oscillation. Then this happens, or it is observed in the Pacific Ocean. Next is North Atlantic Oscillation. It obviously occurs in North Atlantic. Then Pacific Decadal Oscillation, and then Indian Ocean Dipole Mode. Indian Ocean Dipole Mode. So these teleconnections are observed and they have effect over the climate and weather over the continents also. We know that 70% area is occupied by the water and 30% approximately is occupied by the land. That's why the oceans have a very prominent effect on rainfall and climate over the continents, that one should understand. Now, Sir Gilbert Walker was the first person who made a significant contribution to long range forecasting of rainfall in India. He introduced the correlation and regression techniques and objective models. His research for global predictors led to the discovery of Southern Oscillation and North Atlantic Oscillation. Now, what are those Southern and Oscillation? I will tell you. His regression methods have been more or less followed by IMD for the operational work. Now, what is El Nino Southern Oscillations we will discuss. So, firstly, I will show the animation and again I will come here. Now, this is a typical sea surface temperature anomalies. Now, if you observe carefully, so all this red, brown, yellow, green, so they show the positive anomalies. Anomaly means deviation from the average. Anomaly means deviation from the average. And -1, -2, -3, -4, -5 degree temperatures, degree Celsius temperatures. So these are the negative anomalies. Now, if we see this animation carefully, so we will find that colors are observed to be changing here. Now see here, now the red color is appearing here, green color is appearing here. Thereafter, in due course of time, again the white or blue shade comes and so on. It means we'll find the sea surface temperatures go on changing, and as sea surface temperatures change, the evaporation changes. When temperature changes, the atmospheric pressures change. When the atmospheric pressures change, then the tendency of blowing winds, their direction, their force, their vigor, all these things change. When there is sufficient moisture which is available on the oceans and winds are there, so moisture is brought to the continents by the winds and the rainfall patterns go on changing. So now I will come to the sea surface temperatures. We have seen the variations in sea surface temperatures all over the ocean. So ENSO, that is El Nino Southern Oscillation, is composed of El Nino Southern Oscillation. Thus, the oceanic component is called the El Nino or La Nina, depending on its phase. What is El Nino and La Nina? What are the two? These are the two phases of El Nino Southern Oscillation. What are those phases? I will tell you. And the atmospheric component is there also associated with that. So, oceans are the major source of heat in the Earth's climate systems. Sea surface temperature is one of the key controllers of the climate variability and acts as a vast thermal reservoir. It means sea acts as a vast thermal reservoir. And sea surface temperature regulates the transfer of long wave radiation to the atmosphere as well as the latent and sensible heat fluxes into the lower atmosphere. It means this is the physics of atmosphere which is influenced by that. So this animation shows that January, February, March, thereafter in April, May, June, how the sea surface temperatures go on changing and so on. Now, water in the oceans is also not stable. But in fact, we'll find there are 5 major ocean gyres, and these 5 major ocean gyres keep the sea water also, ocean water also moving, not necessarily on the surface, but from surface to deep oceans and again coming up at some other places, depending upon temperature of water, depending upon density of water, depending upon salinity of water, and so on. Now, the Walker circulation. what is this Walker circulation? So uh, on the Pacific Ocean, so this is Pacific Ocean. When we come towards the right, it is east side. When we come towards the left, it is western side. Aditya Nilawar, sir,
Yes, sir.
am I audible properly?
Yes, sir. No problem.
Okay, sir. So, in normal cases, the persistent easterly trade wind, it means wind coming from east side and moving in this way, is a characteristics of a tropical Pacific Ocean. Now, this is in normal cases. So, you will find that the winds blow in this particular direction, and on the western side of this Pacific Ocean, we find that warm, wet, and low pressure things are there, and we find the rainfall activity takes place here. Now, here in Pacific Ocean, there is Tahiti. Tahiti is what we call it as island. Here there is Lima in Peru, and here there is Darwin in Australia. या ठिकाणी. So Darwin in Australia will come somewhere here. Then Tahiti will come somewhere here, and Lima, Peru comes somewhere here. Now, here I will show you three conditions. At middle, there is a normal condition. Here, there is a El Nino condition. And here, there is La Nina condition. Now, in normal conditions, what we find, so yellow means higher temperatures, blue means low temperatures. So at the Central Pacific, say somewhat higher temperatures are there, and this is a pattern. But in El Nino conditions, you will find that the sea surface temperatures go on rising in this Eastern Pacific Ocean, as we observe here, right? So when sea surface temperature rise, thereafter you will find the pressures goes on decreasing, and hence the normal pattern of trade winds coming from eastern direction and going towards west, that weakens. So it brings, when winds are weakening, obviously the moisture which is brought to the continents, it is also reduced, and that's why we find that in severe El Nino conditions we will find droughts are faced by India. On the contrary, there is a condition which is called as La Nina. So in La Nina conditions, we find that on the Central Pacific, temperatures are low, pressures are high, and on this side, pressures are low. So winds blow from the Central Pacific towards the Indian subcontinent with higher velocities, with higher vigor, with higher amount of moisture, and we will find above normal rainfalls are normally recorded whenever the La Nina is active. So El Nino and La Nina are the important temperature fluctuations in surface sea waters of tropical Pacific Ocean, and the atmospheric signature of the southern oscillation reflects the monthly or seasonal fluctuations in the air pressure differences between Tahiti and Darwin. So Darwin is here, Tahiti is here. That index is measured continuously. So this other figure tells you that in normal conditions you will find that lower temperatures here, higher temperatures here, and this is a convective loop which is formed over the Pacific Ocean. But in El Nino conditions, this particular activity shifted towards east. It is shifted towards east, and the wind directions in certain regions revert also, and that's why on India side you will find less moisture is brought. But in La Nina conditions, now sea is heated on this higher on this western side, and we'll find more moisture is brought. So just see, this animation gives you the idea about the winds, sea surface temperatures, and the currents. So if we see at the surface, we find a variation in colors. Variation in colors means variation in temperatures, and also there are variations in temperature of sea water, and that's why we'll find there are variations in winds on surface, there are variations in temperatures at sea surface and below that, as well as there are variations in currents. Now, just see, they are showing us that in month of say 2010, 2011, 12, 13, 14. So how over a period of time these things go on changing. That's why every year's monsoon is not same, but it has its own characteristics that one should understand. So uh, 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 El Nino, severe causes of El Nino in 1970, 1997, 98 were responsible for droughts and so on. Now, let us discuss that this is full Pacific Ocean. But when we try to correlate the Indian summer monsoon rainfall, it means monsoon rainfall over India, with the sea surface temperatures and other things. So this particular region, Nino 3.4 region, that means 5 degrees north and 5 degrees south latitudes, and the longitudes, that is 170 degrees west to 120 degrees west. So this region, whatever happens on this region has a great association or correlation with the Indian summer monsoon rainfall. So whenever we're taking into consideration effect of this is now taken into ENSO index. So index may be 1.5 to 2.5, minus 1, minus 2, minus 2.5, and so. And so what is that? It is the sea surface temperature anomaly over Nino 3.4 region, which this is Nino 3.4 region. It is used as ENSO index, and it has highest correlation with ISMR. So this index can be positive, this index can be negative, normally varies from say -3 to +3, -2.5 to +2.5, 0, and so on. It is an anomaly. So one input we get from a Pacific Ocean, that too from the Nino 3.4 region. Now, we'll discuss the influence of large-scale atmospheric circulation patterns or hydrologic variables. Now, how it is? So rainfall and stream flow are significantly influenced by various large-scale atmospheric circulation patterns, because rainfall is influenced and hence stream flow is influenced. The influence of El Nino southern oscillation on the hydrologic variables through hydroclimatic teleconnection is recognized all over the world. So I discussed that how the associations are, and it is called as hydroclimatic teleconnection. So it is observed by the scientists that Indian summer monsoon rainfall is significantly influenced by ENSO. Indian summer monsoon rainfall is also modulated by one more atmospheric circulation pattern or Indian Ocean region. So that particular oscillation is called as Indian Ocean dipole mode, and it is equatorial Indian Ocean oscillation. How it is so? So we find that various researchers have worked on that. So Allen et al. In 1996, they have shown that the rainfall deficiencies over Africa, Indian subcontinent, northern China, Australia were due to El Nino. Low river discharges in Nile, Senegal, Orange, Krishna, Murray-Darling, Amazon, all over the world. Those are also influenced by ENSO. Surplus rainfall over Europe, Africa, South Africa, Vietnam, Central China, all those are also influenced. It means the effect of these oscillations is not only over India, but it is all over the world. So this tells us the El Nino regional impacts. So whenever during June to August, it means our rainy season, when El Nino is active, El Nino conditions are there, you will find a below average rainfall is observed over India, over Indonesia, some parts of Australia, and so. Whereas we will find higher rainfalls in say North America and so on, higher rainfalls in this particular region. Right. So whereas in La Nina conditions, exactly different is conditions. So in this condition, it was dry. It means below average rainfall. But in La Nina conditions, which are opposite to El Nino condition, during June to August, we'll find above average rainfall all over India and this particular part. Also, more rainfall in the South America, and these portions remain dry. These portions remain warm, and so on. So, if we study the variation of El Nino and all India rainfall anomalies, as I told you, anomaly means variation from average. So we will find we have a data here approximately from say 1850. So 1850 to about say 2005 data is here. So up above this, it means above normal rainfall is there. Above normal by Indian summer monsoon rainfall 100 millimeter above average, or say 200 millimeter below average. This is the meaning year wise. So we find that in some year it is below average, in some year it is above average. These fluctuations are observed. These fluctuations are observed. And now all these red, brown, yellow, that hot colors, those indicate the El Nino conditions. So you will find that all those red, yellow, brown, these bars are associated with the below normal rainfall, associated with the below normal rainfall. Whereas the La Nina conditions of above normal rainfall, which we see in the school colors, the blue, green, or so. So those are associated with the La Nina conditions. Yes, we also find some brown bars above that there was a rainfall slightly above the average in El Nino conditions also. But this is because El Nino is not only one reason of low rainfall, but there's also one more association that we are going to discuss. So one more oscillation which influences the Indian summer monsoon rainfall, it is called as Indian Ocean Dipole Mode, and that is also called as Equatorial Indian Oscillation. Equatorial Indian Ocean Oscillation. So this is equator. This is a equator, Vishuvrutta. And there are two modes. One is negative dipole mode and another is a positive dipole mode. So a red means higher temperatures, blue means low temperatures. So in this particular mode, we will find that in the Indian Ocean, in the western part, low temperatures are there, and in the eastern part, higher temperatures are there. And whatever we see white, those are clouds. So we observe that in these negative dipole mode conditions, less clouds are observed all over the Indian subcontinent, and it leads to lesser rainfall. Whereas in positive dipole mode, what happens? This particular uh, region over Indian Ocean is having lower temperatures, and this is having high temperatures. And that's why winds blow in this direction, bringing a lot of moisture over the Indian subcontinent and lead to the above average rainfall. So there is a now how to take into consideration this particular phenomenon. So it is called as a dipole mode index. It is defined as a difference in sea surface temperature anomaly between tropical western Indian region. So western Indian Ocean region, so 50° east to 70° east longitudes, and 10° south, 10° north latitudes, and the tropical southeastern Indian Ocean. So this is another 92. It means one region is here, another region is here. Yeah, the anomaly in these two we take into consideration. So as we discussed just now, the equino, it is the atmospheric component of IOD mode, Indian Ocean Dipole mode, and it is negatively correlated. The convection over eastern part of equatorial Indian Ocean is negatively correlated to the other western part of equatorial Indian Ocean. And the anomalies in the sea level surface temperatures and donal component of surface wind along equator are consistent with the convection anomalies. So it means one more index we are going to find from this oscillation, it is called as equatorial zonal wind index, that is equin. And it is considered as the index of equino, which is defined as negative of the anomaly of zonal component, negative of anomaly of zonal component of surface wind in a specific region over equatorial Indian Ocean, and this is the region. So this index depend upon the wind pattern, right? And uh, Ashok et al. Gargid, they have worked on this and they have shown the association of this index with Indian summer monsoon rainfall and hence the stream flows. So this is a literature review. I'll not to go into depth. So Douglas uh, and others have worked on the long range forecasting of stream flows in Ganga based on ENSO. Chaudhary and Ward, they have worked on the effect of ENSO on Ganga, Brahmaputra, Meghna basin. Webster and Hoyes, they have worked for Brahmaputra and Ganga river basin discharges which are influenced by ENSO activity. Mehti and Nagesh Kumar, they developed a scheme for basin scale monthly stream flow for Mahanadi basin based on ENSO and Equinu. Now, that way, for different long range forecasting, there can be statistical method, there are numerical weather prediction method, there are dynamic statistical methods. Now, just I will glance through how India Meteorological Department has been working over a period for prediction of Indian summer monsoon rainfall, especially the long range forecasting. So, I will not go into depth, otherwise it will be difficult for me to cover the things, but I will just give you the glimpse. So, IMD is solely responsible for issuing the operational long range forecast. The forecasts are prepared at the National Climate Centers of IMD at Pune. We know that Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology is the research institute at Pune again, which carries out research in meteorology, especially tropical meteorology, which is important for Indian summer monsoon rainfall. So they have been changing with the time. So from 1924 to 87, they had the forecast Northwest India Peninsula. In 1988, they had the 16 parameter model. In 1999, then the forecast for 3 different regions were introduced. Thereafter, so it means they were working with 16 parameter models up to 2002, but thereafter they started working with just 8 to 10 parameters in 2004, and after 2007 they have come with the new statistical models introduced. So they have been changing their methodology time to time. So from 2007 they started working with 8 predictors. For April forecast they use first 5 predictors, and for updated forecast in June they use 6 predictors. It means if you see the timetable, so you will find that for in April they give one forecast, and thereafter in June they give the next refined forecast. So for April and June forecast, what are the predictors they are using? The North Atlantic sea surface temperature anomalies, then equatorial Southeast Ocean sea surface temperature they are considering, East Asia mean sea level pressure they are considering, Northwest Europe land surface air temperature inputs they are giving, equatorial Pacific warm water volume that is given as one of the inputs. Thereafter, Central Pacific, that is 3.4, Nino 3.4 region sea surface temperature tendency they are studying. The North Atlantic mean sea level pressures they are taking into consideration. North Central Pacific wind at 1.5 kilometer above the sea level they are considering. So it means this gives us the idea about what are the predictors or what are the parameters which are considered for prediction of rainfall that we'll discuss. So as I told you, so these are different Nino regions. So this is yellow is Nino 4, this red is Nino 3, this is Nino 3.4, which is more important for us. 5 degrees north, 5 degrees south latitudes, and then from here to here. So what they do recently, they do not depend only on one model, but they have ensembles of model and then they give the mean forecasts. So if you see a combination, so you'll find, say in model 1, they take 3 predictors, and predictors are A1, A2, A4. So A1 is this, A2 is this, A3 is this, and so on. I'm not going in details. Just here, you just need to understand that we go for different combinations of predictors. In some combination, there will be more predictors. In combination, will be less predictors. It is never true that by increasing by going for more number of predictors, we can get a very good forecast. So, and it is also not true that with very small number of predictors, we can have good forecast. So we need to optimize those. That's why we need to go for the permutations and combinations of different predictors to arrive at the best forecast. So as I told you, they give the forecast in April and June, and what forecast they are given, that we discussed. So this particular map just gives you idea that from which region they are considering. So this is the East Asia pressure anomaly they take into consideration. This is Northwest Europe temperature anomaly. This is the Indian Ocean sea surface temperature anomaly. This is the Pacific Nino 3.4 sea surface temperature anomaly. North Atlantic sea surface temperature anomaly. So these are the parameters identified by various researchers for predictions, and then those are used in permutations and combinations and so on. So for northeast monsoon statistical forecast again, so there they go, so these were for the uh, southwest, and this is for northeast. So northeast, the predictors of northeast monsoon are different. So Northeast India wind, South Indian Ocean wind, South Indian Ocean wind U850, Equatorial Pacific Nino, and so on. So this was something about the indices which we are going for, uh, understanding the teleconnection in between the rainfall and the atmosphere. Now, prediction of monthly all India rainfall during summer monsoon based on the large scale circulation patterns. Now, the objectives of this particular work is to develop models for say medium range or say 1 month ahead forecast, to develop models for ISMF forecast at end of May. It means full season forecast. At end of May, we want to tell about how will be the coming rainfall season. That is the May end prediction, and then to compare both the forecast and so on. Now, as I told you that artificial intelligence is a technology and a branch of computer science that studies and develops intelligent machines and software. The evolutionary computation uses a form of optimization search. For example, they may begin with a population of organisms, that is the gases, and then allow them to mutate and recombine, selecting only the fittest to survive each generation. Now we are coming towards the methodology. So the forms of evolutionary computation include the swarm intelligence algorithm, such as ant colony or particle swarm optimization, or genetic algorithms, gene expression programming, and genetic programming. So out of these, I use the genetic programming in my predictions. Now, fuzzy systems can be used for uncertain reasoning and have been widely used in modern industrial and consumer products. Classifiers are functions that use pattern matching. Then the most widely classifiers are the neural networks. We know that the neural network is an interconnected group of nodes akin to the vast network of neurons in human brain. The main categories of networks are so and so. I will not go into the depth or so. Now we are coming towards genetic programming. So in field of AI, a genetic algorithm is a search heuristic that mimics the process of natural evolution. It is used to generate useful solutions to optimization and search problems. So people from water resources nowadays, they have been using to a great extent. So GS genetic algorithms belong to the larger class of evolutionary algorithms which generate solutions to optimization problems using techniques inspired by natural evolution such as inheritance, mutation, selection, crossover, and so on. They have applications in bioinformatics, computer science, engineering, economics, chemistry, manufacturing, mathematics, physics, and so on. Now, we are coming to my tool, genetic programming. It is artificial intelligence. GP is an evolutionary algorithm based on methodology inspired by biological evolution to find computer programs. So GP gives you computer programs that perform a user-defined task. But these computer programs are not directly written by the researcher, but rather these programs are developed by the genetic programming tool based on the input data which we provide and the output data which we provide. What are input data we provide, what are output data we provide, these two things are matched by forming certain equations or rather forming certain programs. See, when you're suppose we are solving a problem of say finding out shear forces and bending moments along a length of beam or at a particular section. So there is a certain method. So suppose it is uniform distributed load. So input the load, input the span, give the distance from say the left end. Then firstly we calculate the reactions. After calculating the reaction, then we write the shear force equation. Then we write the bending moment equation, and thereafter we give the distance x, and then we get the shear force and bending moment there. So methodology is fixed. So we write a program. So this program is written according to logic. But what GP does, so GP is a set of instructions and fitness function to measure how well a computer has performed a task. It is a specialization of genetic algorithms, where each individual is a computer program. It means now computer programs are evolved which connect inputs and outputs. And it is done through the machine learning technique. It is done through the machine learning techniques. It means the machine learns from a data, forms millions of equations or millions of computer programs which accept the input and give the output. And the best program which we get, which gives answer very near to that, that is the best program. It is evolved by GP. Now, I will skip a few of the slides here. So GP is basically genetic algorithm. It is applied genetic algorithm applied to computer programs. It means there is evolution of in computer programs. G operates on codes, but GP operates on computer programs. GP allows optimization of complicated structures and therefore applied to greater diversity of problems. Now, what are the preparatory steps for applying GP? Firstly, determine the first set of terminals. It means the inputs. Decide fitness measure and parameters for controlling the run. It means how long the evolution should run. So that we can define before starting the runs. Decide method of designating a result and criteria for terminating a run. Right? So it means the terminals can be viewed as inputs and as yet discovered a computer program. The set of terminals along with the set of functions are the ingredients. I will show you in a figure. So what we give to a GP, firstly, we give the parameters, then we give the fitness measures, then we give the function sets. It means arithmetic function, trigonometric functions, or any other types of functions which GP should use for forming the equations or programs. Then the terminal set we give, and then GP gives us a computer program. So it's a simple tree structure represented by a model. So this is 2 pi. So 2 into pi. So 2 multiplied by pi. This is plus. It means this particular part is say here inside this bracket. So this is y divided by 5 plus 1. This is 5 plus 1. Y divided by 5 plus 1. X plus 3 is x plus 3. And x plus 3 minus this to minus comes here. This is a representation. Now what one can do in GP, one can cut this part and attach here, different equation. One can cut this part and attach here, another different equation. And such millions of equations can be formed, and those equations are tested by GP for the results. So now the crossover operation. So in crossover operation, so this is say one parent, this is another parent too. So say this particular part can be cut and put on this side, and this particular part can be cut on in this side, and we will say that a crossover has taken place also. And this is a child one, this is child two, just changing some parts, one from here to here and other from here to here. Now there can be mutation. So here one can just cut this particular part of equation and only this will remain. So we say it is a mutation. Now what are advantages of GP? Very importantly, GP does not assume any priori function form. It means GP tool will decide which is the best function. You need not tell GP. We will just give a set of number of functions. GP will choose from that. Input and target variables and the function set are defined initially. Learning method find both the optimal structure of models as well as coefficients. It is both the things are given by GP. Its automatic ability to select input variables that contribute beneficially. This is one more thing which is possible with the GP tool, that some inputs are more effective, some inputs are less effective. So GP will give you the input impact of each and every variable, and depending upon that input impact, one will be able to deselect some inputs or add some inputs or go for different variable combinations. Now there can be two different representation, tree representation, linear representation. I will not go into the depth of this. So tree based typical crossover, I told you, devising a model using GP. So a special type of GP which we have used here is a linear genetic programming. Remember, linear does not mean that it will give linear equations, but rather it denotes a GP variant which involves sequence of instructions from an imperative programming language or machine language. The name linear reflects a structure of the program representation. It does not represent or it does not stand for functions or for functional genetic programs that are restricted to linear list of nodes. ऐसा नहीं है. Moreover, it does not mean that the method itself is linear. Rather, it can solve linearly separable problems only. On contrary, genetic programs normally represents highly non-linear solutions that one should understand. So, after telling about the programs, one will be curious that how a genetic program looks actually. So this is a typical portion of a code which is given by linear GP. For example, now here you will find that V0 is average monthly rain. V1, that is variable 1, is El Nino index at t minus 1 time step. Variable 2 is El Nino index at time step t minus 2. It may say 2 months back. V3 is El Nino's index at 3 time step before, it means 3 months back. V4 is Equino index, V5 is Equino index 2 months back, V6 and F0 is a rain. So we want to estimate the rain. So the input of the climatology is given by the average monthly rain. Average monthly rain will give you a baseline, average monthly rain. And thereafter, the monthly variations will be due to these variables V1, V2, V3, V4, V5, V6, 7, and so on. And thereafter, you will arrive at a predicted rain for a particular month. So this F1, F2, F3, F4, F5, F6, which we observe here, These are the temporary variables in process, right? And this L0, L1, L2, L3, these are the line numbers. And then when, so a GP will give you a function. So this, it says float Discipulus C function. So Discipulus is the name of software. It gives a C function, and uh, that function is given by that. So function written by GP tool are used, and then we take these functions and call those functions in a C program, and then we get the predictions. So here this is a flowchart of GP. So the start, create initial population, evaluate fitness, then go to models, then select genetic programming operations probabilistically. Thereafter, there can be 3 paths. Select a model using a roulette wheel selection, perform reproduction. In this line, we perform crossover. In this, we perform mutation, and we go on testing the models. And this testing will continue until whether how many runs you have given to a program, and thereafter when this maximum generation is over, then it will give the best model, and then we'll stop. So problem formulation. So genetic programming is to evolve a function that relates input information. Say y is function of xn. Sometimes, so here in rainfall we are taking only one dependent variable against number of independent variables. So xn is n dimensional input vector, ym is an m dimensional output vector. We have tried with one here only. So in stream flow predictions, how one can have the model. So problem of stream flow forecasting using information of large scale atmospheric circulation phenomena can be formulated as stream flow in a particular month or say particular week. Now let us take an example of a month. So it is function of average monthly stream flow. If suppose we want to estimate the stream flow of say August. So average monthly stream flow of August observed over say last 50 years, 60 years, it will give you the climate baseline. And thereafter ENSO index at T-1. It means if you want of August, so ENSO index of say 1 month before that means July, ENSO index of June, and ENSO index of May. So May, June, July, 3 indices of ENSO, and again July, August, July, and June, 3 indices. So this can be one of the models. It means the climatology is base of climatology is given by this particular value, and these indices we are giving inputs, and then we are giving it to GP to create a models. So the advantages of GP we have discussed. So who has used this GP? So Wiggum and Crapper used for rainfall runoff relationship. Then Durando et al. They are used for rainfall runoff. Then Mutil and Young, they have used for rainfall runoff. Stream flow rate prediction, these people have worked. Yoon and Rosen have worked for dynamic behavior of groundwater level fluctuations. Then Hong and Brahmi, they have worked for dynamic performance of municipal activated sludge wastewater treatment plants. Predictions के लिए. Thereafter, daily suspended sediment and discharge relationship, for this work, the ITEC and KISS, they have worked. Now, the typical choice of GP control parameters, I told you that we need to give the control parameters before starting the run. So say the population size be 500, maximum number of generations 300, mutation frequency 90%, crossover frequency 50%, all these things we can vary. Reproduction rate, it is will be calculated, and we give the fitness criteria as mean squared error between actual and the predicted value, mean squared error. So we need to define the fitness criteria also. And then we give a typical function set of say basic arithmetic operators, some basic mathematical functions, sine, cos, tan, square root, or power, and other functions. So for prediction of Indian summer monsoon rainfall, how do they work? So you will find that India is divided into what we call it as homogeneous monsoon regions of India. So this is the peninsular region, the pink is the west central region, the dark blue is northeast region, this is central northwest region, this is northwest region. So these regions are uh, classified depending upon the characteristics of monsoon. So we will have different equations or different models for these predictions. And these regions are further divided into the subdivisions. So these are the subdivisions. So for example, say 25 is a Marathwada subdivision, 29 is a Telangana subdivision, 33 is a North Interior Karnataka, 35 is Kerala subdivision. So we can have models for uh, overall Indian summer monsoon prediction average over India. We can have models for specific regions, and nowadays we also get the predictions from IMD for different subdivisions also. So when we take into consideration full India, so this is the monthly variation of all India rainfall, where we find that June, July, August, September, these are the months in which about 80% rainfall takes place, 75 to 80. In October, November also there's rainfall. This November, December rainfall is from, say, South India or so. So these are the homogeneous regions, all India, central north, east, northeast, northwest, peninsular, west central, number of subdivisions. So all India is the total thing, and these are the areas in square kilometers or so. Now, I will not go in the literature review of INSO and ISMR, but now these are the models. So as I told you that, so when we want to have model of Indian summer monsoon rainfall, so for example, say rainfall of June, if you want to predict, it is the average rainfall observed over June. That means the climatic value of say last 50 years, 60 years. And then the INSO indices of May, April, and March before this June. Equivalent indices of May, April, and March before that. Right? So such can be a model. Now, for this analysis, we had a date. Hello? Okay. Aditya, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. So in 10 minutes, I will say finish my presentation, and thereafter I will go for question answers, right?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. So as these models are data-driven models, so the data period we had for this analysis was 1950 to 210. With additional data also we work. If we are having more data, better models one can get. So out of this data, we use 1950 to 75 data for training, 76 to 1990 data for validation. It is other part of training, and for testing 1991 to 2010. So the monthly area weighted rainfall series for each of 30 meteorological subdivisions has been prepared. So we had this data from IITM, Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology. Now, so this is the geography of India, and you know that these are different river basins of India and so on. And I told you that these are different meteorological subdivisions of India. So where the meteorology is approximately same, the geography is approximately same, the rainfall patterns are approximately same, and so on. I told you about the homogeneous monsoon regions of India also. Now, this is called as the core monsoon region of India. So, uh, if we see the average monthly rainfall for all India, it is in June 160, July 267, August 247, September 167. Total is about 840.4 average, and seen the various regions also. Now these values are used by us as the average values in a model. That's why it is necessary. Now just see, uh, if you see this particular graph, there are two bars for each and every month, June to October. So June, July, August, September, October. In October also we have substantial rainfall. So observed rainfall is shown by this blue, and computed or predicted rainfall by GP tool is given by the say brown or say maroon color. And if you see how these things match, how these things match. Of course, this is during a training period. This is a training period. Now let us see for validation. So this is observed, this is predicted, this is observed, monthly rainfall, observed, predicted, observed, predicted, observed, predicted, observed, predicted, observed, predicted. And for totally unseen data, we find that these are the during the testing period. So these are during testing periods. So you will find that the bars of observed and computed reasonably match over a period of time. So this is for June to October testing for central northeast. This is for west central India. It means here you will find that performance of models is not same for all regions, but it is different. How it is different, that I will show you. This is for northeast India. This is for northwest India. This is for peninsular India. In peninsular India, you will find that there is a big variation. The correlation coefficient comes out to be the least here. So here you will find. So these are the correlation coefficients during training. For all India, we find 0.93, for training, for validation 0.93, and for testing 0.86. For central northeast India, we find, I'll just read the testing values only because those are most important. It is 0.84. For west central, it is 0.83. For northeast, it is 0.8. For northwest, it is 0.72. And peninsular India, 0.32. It is much less as compared to that. Now, why so? Because this is not the region of the June to October rainfall. Rather, here the rainfall is, major portion of rainfall is in November, December. That's why this is less. One more thing you will find that all India gives best values, and as we go on low regions, we get the lesser values. So the reason the difference is that on bigger region, good averaging is there, better results are there, and these hydroclimatic teleconnections can be prominently seen on large areas, but not that prominently seen or not that prominently predicted on very smaller areas, because the systems are very big, very complex. So these are the correlation coefficients and the root mean square errors and so on in that predictions. Now, I told you about the input impact factors which are given by genetic programming tool. So what it does, so the genetic programming tool selects 30 best programs. It selects 30 best programs which give the most correct answers. No answer is 100% correct. And then it analyzes that out of given input variables, how many times in how many programs a particular variable was used. For example, suppose we had 30 best programs. So ENT-1, L is the index of the previous month. So that input was included by the GP tool in 30 out of 30 programs. It's 100% impact. That is one point. Whereas El Nino at T-3 time step, it means for October rainfall, so T-1, sorry, for September rainfall, T-1 is say August, T-2 in July, T-3 is June. So obviously it has a lesser impact. So this is 0.43, suppose it is a 0.5. So it means out of 30 best programs, 15 programs have picked up this El Nino T-3 index, others have not. So this is called as input impact. This facility is also given by the GP tool that one should understand. So here how GP helps us to have better combinations that also can be learned. So the same way these are the inputs. So let us discuss about the results for all monthly monsoon rainfall analysis June to September. So number of years for which monsoon was tested, 20. 20 monsoons were tested, each monsoon of 4 months, 80 months were tested. So in 44 months, the error was less than 10%. The error was in between 10 to 20% for 26 months, and error was more than 20% of mean for only 10 months of prediction. So this gives us the idea about this. So in the same way, these figures can be there for various regions. Training and testing correlation coefficient for all India 0.86, 0.70. Now there's one May end analysis. So what is this May end analysis? That there is no fun as a long range forecast if we are given. It means 1 month lead time forecast means at end of June we are predicting July rainfall. At end of June we are predicting July rainfall. Okay, it can be sufficient, or that prediction will be important for say your farming activities, when to have, how to have or so. But we'll always like to have prediction at the end of month of May, so that we can decide the water management strategies for a coming year. If it is expected that a drought is likely to be there in coming season, so one will not go for say the high water demanding crops like sugarcane, or similarly in that way you can go for that. So we tried both 1 month lead time forecast as well as one single time forecast, single value forecast at the end of May or so. So obviously May end forecast will give lesser correlation coefficient. So for example, for all India, correlation coefficient could reach up to 0.86 for 1 month lead forecast. Means July forecast at end of June, say August forecast at say end of July, say September forecast at say month of August or so. Whereas single time, one time forecast. So these were the correlation coefficients and so on. So in anomaly form, one can see all India summer monsoon predictions. So this tells you trends. This tells you trends also. So this is a monsoon of year. Now just see in monthly forecasting, when your prediction is below average, yes, it is below average, yes, it is below average. Observe predicted, observe predicted, observe predicted. Here we predicted above average, above 20 percent of mean, about 10% of mean. So most of these match that we observe, right? So this was something about the predictions. Now the total monsoon rainfall predictions, just see in 1992 we know that there was a drought. So below average was predicted, below average. In 2002 there was drought, so below average was predicted, below average was observed. In 2004 below average was predicted, below average was observed in this way. So it means one can predict the droughts by using this. So now let me conclude. So influence of ENSO and EQUINU on the regional Indian summer monsoon rainfall varies from region to region. I told you, because the geography is different. At the same time, the distance from ocean is different, and so on. The highest correlation was observed for central northeast India and west central India, followed by northeast and northwest regions of India. Considerably less correlation was observed for peninsular India. I told you that the prominent rainfall is observed in November, December also. So this is quite obvious. The GP-based method in the proposed work is demonstrated in context of Indian summer monsoon rainfall is dependent on ENSO and EQUINU. The performance of model is found to be alluring, attractive. The proposed method is general in many aspects and can therefore be applied for similar studies and teleconnected hydroclimatic variables. It means one can use GP for teleconnection studies. ENSO and EQUINU indices uh, cannot be applied at a very small spatio-temporal scale, right? This is very important to understand. For larger spatial scale, for larger temporal scale, we find better results, and as we go on smaller scale, the results go on reducing. It is quite obvious if I'm in Pune and suppose it may happen that at Pirangut rainfall takes place, very heavy rainfall takes place, but there is no rainfall in Pimpri. There is medium rainfall in Hadapsar. It happens. It means there is a large spatial variability in rainfall activity. That's why when we consider large area, averaging is there, results are better. But when you come to very smaller areas, due to variation of rainfall pattern, our results are not good, which is quite obvious. Same thing about temporal scale. We know that in month of August there will be good rainfall, but we cannot say with 100% guarantee that on 23rd of August from 4 to 5 p.m. there will be heavy rainfall. One cannot predict, right? It means when we go for smaller temporal scales also, the predictions may not be that accurate also. So the approach presented is a lumped approach. Distributed nature of approach cannot be considered through this approach. So this was something about Indian summer monsoon rainfall. Now the same thing can be done for stream flows. Same. So here we took into consideration the outgoing long wave radiation also as a additional input for the stream flow. I will not discuss these things, but same methodology is adopted. But we went for the weekly basin scale predictions, and here we had 37 input variables, and those had the weekly values, weekly stream flows, weekly El Nino indices, weekly equatorial Indian Ocean indices, weekly OIRAS, and so. And we went for different combinations. So such combinations were possible. Tick means we had taken this variable. Here these variables are not used. It means many combinations we can have, and ultimately we can arrive at a best combination. For example, the best combination which is observed here in testing is this. So which considers the historical average stream flow, the outgoing long wave radiation, which is a proxy for rainfall, or the clouds activity, and then the stream flows of say last few weeks, the El Nino indices of say about say 6 weeks, and equatorial indices about say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks, and so on. So these were the input impacts of each and every variable. Even though you give 37 inputs, the tool gives you input impact of every input, and ultimately we can arrive at the best input variable combination. So for stream flows, you will find, so directly I will come to the best combination. Just see the predicted stream flows are by thick line, observed are by this small line. So the stream flows also can be predicted by this AI tool or so. So for different combinations, we have different graphs, the comparison of results, and again the statistics of predictions. And one small study was also done by taking the local variables, outgoing long wave radiation, total precipitable water, temperature anomalies, pressure anomalies, by using the same input. So out of that, the precipitable water was observed to be having the most important thing for this. The temperature, pressure had their effects, but similar. And again, one can go for the stream flow predictions based on the large scale indices El Nino and Equino, large scale atmospheric circulation indices, and local scale meteorological variables like temperature anomaly, pressure anomaly, outgoing long wave radiations, and so on. So what were the conclusions that I had discussed regarding methodology and so on? So based on these, we had good research papers in say Journal of Hydrometeorology, American Meteorological Society, then ISS Journal of Hydraulic Engineering, thereafter Journal of Hydrology elsewhere. One more paper was there. Then the American Geophysical Union's Water Resources Research, a paper was there. In some workshops also papers were there. So thank you all of you.
If participants have any question, they can ask, or they can write in chat box. Sir, I have one question.
Yes, sir, please.
Can we perform uncertainty analysis using GP?
Uncertainty analysis is not performed in this. The models which are uh, we have from this technology are the deterministic models, sir.
Okay, sir. And what are the challenges in short range forecasting, sir?
In challenges in short range forecasting, it means what will I to do here? I have considered long range forecast.
Yes, sir.
So here our indices were of say monthly indices, June index, July index. But if we go for the short range forecast, then again we have to come on a smaller time scales. So
Mhm.
for that particular purpose, again, if you go for smaller time scales, the inputs will be different. है ना? Inputs will be
Yes,
different.
sir.
So it means for today's rainfall, today's precipitable water is more important here. So the inputs will be different, right?
Mhm.
So for very long range forecast, one will be depending upon say ENSO, Equinu, and other things. But for local level forecast and for short range forecast, what are the present weather conditions? Those will be more important. So accordingly, input will be different.
Sir, some questions are in chat box.
Yes, yes. I'm opening the chat box.
Okay, sir.
Upadhyay sir has asked, does the atmospheric pollutant affects the rainfall? See, remember whatever we are talking about climate change now, right? It is due to the introduction of greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases are altering the temperatures, changing the are influencing the temperatures. When temperatures are changed, the pressures have changed. When pressures have changed, the wind patterns uh, will change. So ultimately, the effect of climate change will be coming into consideration there. So all that particular research work is again different. It goes to the global climate models, the predictions of all those greenhouse gases, how that will vary over a period of time, and accordingly that will be fitted, that will be given to the global climate models. Accordingly, we will be operating those and then downscaling all other things, right? Next is what is meant by training and testing. So if we have 100 years of data, remember as I told you, the models are uh, given to us by the generative programming tool only. Now, how tool arrives at a model? So what we do, we give a 70 years of data, both input as well as output. It means I have suppose take a period of say 1901 to 2000. So what we'll do, so from 1901 to 1970, we'll give all inputs of average monthly rainfall, monthly ENSO indices, monthly Equinu indices, and also we'll give the effect of that. That was a monthly rainfall, right? And by reading this data, that data-driven technique will then what we say, evolve the GP models, and those models will be now tested on the remaining 30 years data. So for remaining 30 years data, when it is going, there it will be truly tested that for the unseen data, whether it gives the correct answers. So there will be giving only inputs, and output will be found by the equations or the programs which are given by the GP tool. So that is training and testing. That's why we find in training the correlation between observed and predicted is say 0.9, but in testing it comes out to be say 0.76. So obviously it will be less in testing because it is unseen data, right? So more the correlation coefficient, more perfect is the equation. That is the answer to Mandar sir's question. Now, Kulkarni madam has asked, are AI techniques more effective in hydrology and hydrologic modeling processes or ML? How far can we relate with CFD outputs? Now, see, artificial intelligence techniques try to correlate the inputs with outputs with the variety of models or so. So, but for CFD studies, what I feel, I have not worked on CFD studies, but their uh, inputs are perfectly observed, outputs are also perfectly observed also. So, artificial intelligence is nothing but uh, training from experience, training from data, and so on. Okay. Dattatreya Rajmani sir is asking which input gives better prediction results, either large scale or local scale variables. Now see, as I told you, due to lack of time, I did not show you the stream flow forecasting, but both have good effects. It means whenever we are coming on shorter time scale, the local variables give you better results. But on longer time scale or for longer lead times, the local scale variables, that way they cannot be that much helpful. That could be the answer. Now, Dr. Weicker is asking which study is more convincing, rainfall forecasting or stream flow forecasting? Uh, a very nice question. Rainfall forecasting and stream flow forecasting. See, what happens in stream flow forecasting? Now, what we observed that no river is without dam. The dams are there, the watershed management works are there, we are trapping a lot of water in the catchment, and wherever we are observing the stream flow, so that stream flow is influenced by the dams upstream, influenced by the lifting of water upstreams or so. So that is not the case with the rainfall. That is not the case with the rainfall. That's why rainfall predictions are more convincing than stream flow forecasting. That is the answer for this. Ketki madam is asking machine learning versus AI versus CFD. Madam, I have not yet entered in this machine learning, but I intend to go in that. And with CFD also, I have not worked. I know. So I will not be able to give you a good answer for this your question. Weicker sir is again asking, can we identify extreme events, periods of heavy rainfall, wet period, or dry period? Now, uh, these events of extreme events of periods of heavy rainfall, wet periods, or dry period, again, those can be predicted, say up to say a weekly scale or up to say monthly scale or so by using this particular thing. See, whenever we are going for the short range predictions, the predictors will be different. For long range predictors, the predictors will be again different, or same or similar predictors can be there, but over various shorter periods. It means one can have ENSO index of 2 months, one can have ENSO index of 1 month, one can have ENSO index of a week also. But again, it is not exactly a train which starts from Pacific Ocean and reaches up to say Nanded or Solapur at so and so particular time. The system is much complex. So as I told you, when we come on a smaller spatial scale or smaller temporal scale, the prediction efficiency reduces. That's a meaning, sir. Dr. Weicker is an essence. Can you remove my confusion? Predictors and forecast. See, ENSO is a predictor. ENSO index is a predictor. Equilibrium index is a predictor. And predicted rainfall is a rainfall forecast. And whereas one average rainfall value of which is observed over say last 50 years we are giving, that is a base value given. That is a base value given, just like we have average value. So whether there will be above average rainfall or below average rainfall in coming month will depend upon the ENSO indices, equilibrium indices of say previous 3 months, 2 months, and so on. Depending upon that, the genetic program will catch the right value. So if above average, 10% above average, 15% above average, 2% below average, and so it will directly give you the value. Directly give you the value. It will not give in percentages, but just for understanding, I told about that. Aditya sir, there is no more question in the.
Any question participant can ask. Okay. I think no question. Vaikar sir, will you give vote of thanks to Kashif sir?
I should thank Dr. Emil Weicker. He is my teacher. He is my mentor. and he is my guide in all situations. So I cannot have vote of thanks from Dr. Vaikar, but I need blessings from him, being his student.
We must thank you. Dr. Satish, you really presented two studies very nicely. Hope audience will like it, and those who want to continue with research and want some topics for seminars, etc., they would be definitely largely getting benefited by this. There are few things about Satish also I would like to mention at this juncture. He is very good orator, that you must have realized, but he is very nice in writing also. Okay, he writes some stories also in literature, and beyond that he has also written some articles in vernacular Marathi language for common people, especially on this river basin transfer and then agriculture. A very thorough gentleman, hardcore researcher. He's also board of study member for University of Solapur. He's doing very nice research work. I wish him all the best. And on behalf of participants and also on my personal behalf, please accept our thanks. No matter what is our religion, but this forum is something different, and we must acknowledge your contribution.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Great
Thank you very much.
presentation. Take care.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Thank you,
Thank you, Aditya, sir.
Thank you,
And,
sir.
thank you all the participants. Okay.
So here I conclude today's session. We will meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thank you.
Should we leave, sir? Aditya is over.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Over, sir.
Okay, may I leave, Aditya, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So stop recording then.
Yes, sir.